So one of my favorite parts about the video that I shot with my brother back in August was hearing him tell his car story. And much as we grew up in the same place, we had the same parents, had many of the same experiences, only he was 4 years older than I am. How different his point of view was, and it's kind of neat because I guess we all have our own car story. We all have, our story that makes us who we are. And though I can't really tell you why he likes cars, why I like cars, and why somebody else doesn't, we like what we like. And it's fun to reflect on it. I recall being completely obsessed with cars starting at age 4, which is probably as far back as I can remember. And I could tell every car, make, and model on the road, and I could do it by looking at the wheels or the hubcaps. And as time went on, I developed a encyclopedic knowledge of every make and model, every engine configuration, 0 to 60 times, quarter mile times, you name it. And that just grew and grew inside of me. Early on, I became obsessed with Ferraris. For whatever reason, I didn't like Porsches as much. It's weird how you sort of choose your team and then you stick with it. When I was 7 years old, my brother, I always joke with him about it because this was his Christmas present to me. My Christmas present was the December 1984 edition or issue of Road and Track magazine, and on the cover of it was the wildest looking car I had ever seen. It's the brand new Ferrari Testarossa with the cheese grater, air vents, and there's nothing like it at the time. I don't think there's been anything like it since. I actually got to see one a few weeks ago at Caffeine and Carburetors. Got to show my daughter. But I quickly realized that I would never be able to have a car like that. And if I could get any other car, it would probably be a Testarossa. But, it's not a very practical car. Yes, you can drive it every day, but maintenance on those things is insane. And it doesn't have power steering. It's not very easy to drive. You can't park at many places. And I think if I had a Ferrari, I would be always terrified. So as I grew up, I continued to stay focused on Ferraris. I was always interested, of course, in Lamborghini and what Porsche was doing, and Mercedes-Benz. And really, as a child of the 80s, cars weren't very good. When the 90s came around, cars started to get a lot better. I had an infatuation with the Acura Legend. My family, we drove Hondas. My dad had a Mercedes. My brother and I each had Hondas as our first cars. So I guess I had an eye for Hondas, and that Acura Legend had 200 horsepower out of a 3.2 liter V6, and it did 0 to 60 in about 7.9 seconds. And back then, that was fast. Coming out of the 1980s, coming out of the 1970s especially, cars just weren't fast. So as time went on, and I recall standing in my apartment when I was 22 years old in Minneapolis, right after I graduated from college, and I got this issue of Automobile magazine, and on the cover of it was the new E46 M3. And I suppose I came to love BMW from my friend Wyatt Vreeland. As my friend in high school. He was 2 years older than I was, so he got his driver's license before I did. He was a junior, I was a freshman. He would drive me around in his I think it's an E24. It's the generation before the E28. He had a 528i 1980 model. Had a 2.8 liter straight six, which at idle sounds identical to my M3. It was very much a BMW. It was very much a driver's car. It was fun to drive and aggressive in a way that no other cars were that a reasonable person could hope to own. It wasn't a sports car. It was a comfortable sedan that you could take your friends around in. And at the time, it was an old car. It was, I guess when I was riding around in it, it was 13, 14, 15 years old. And then he got himself an E30 1987 325 IS, which is the next step down from the first generation M3. And back then, the M3 was respected, but people, an M3 didn't mean then what it means now. They were very rare. But times have changed a lot since then. But anyway, he got this car, and he let me drive it. I actually drove it to prom. I remember fishtailing in it. It was a blast. But that car it was a 2.5 liter straight six with, I want to say it was about 169 horsepower. That was before they had upgraded it to 195 horsepower. But it was still really quick. At least it felt quick at the time. And it was just a little go-kart. It was so much fun to drive. And I suppose after that, what else would I hope to have? I mean, I wasn't going to have a Ferrari, so it was BMW from there on out. And I recall him test driving an E34 M5. And those are extremely rare. I must have seen 3 of them in my hometown. In my hometown, there were a lot of nice cars around. They're really rare. And as it happened, my neighbor had an E34 M5 when I was at the end of high school, and he let me drive it. I almost killed us in it, doing something really stupid, which is one reason why I'm always saying for the young people, learn how to drive before you drive something truly fast, because you can get yourself into a lot of trouble very quickly. But once you see something like that, and once you ride in something like that, once you drive something like that, you see the quality. And you see that you too can have one. It plants a seed in your head. And that's what it did for me.